Lawyers, when did a Bridezilla try to ruin everyone's lives? And karma slapped back with a lawsuit. Story 1. I represented a woman, we'll call her Amanda, who had been a bridesmaid for her longtime friend. This friend was the epitome of a control freak turned Bridezilla. 3-day wedding, 3 different dresses with specific shoes, specific hairstyles, over $700 sunk into it all. Amanda complied with every request without complaint. Then Amanda began losing her hair due to a health condition. In May, she made the tough decision to cut it short. She told the bride 2 weeks before the wedding. Bride seemed fine. But 1 week out, she passive-aggressively voiced her concerns, and then 3 days before the ceremony, Amanda received a message that she was being kicked out for disrespecting the vision. The bride said Amanda had compromised her aesthetic and that her short haircut would ruin the wedding photos. She even accused Amanda of being selfish after Amanda had spent weeks helping plan events, surprising her with a shower, writing a workout plan for her, and even personally training with her. Amanda sent an invoice for the $700 in costs. No reply, so we filed a claim in small claims court. In court, the bride tried to play the "my day, my rules" card, but the judge wasn't having it, especially when Amanda produced receipts, screenshots, and even a message where the bride admitted she had no intent of paying her back. We won. Amanda was reimbursed, and the kicker, that bride is now unofficially blacklisted among most of the vendors in her area after the story made the rounds. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I'm a paralegal at a mid-sized firm. This case came across my desk a few years ago, and it was so unhinged I still think about it. We represented the maid of honor. Yes, the maid of honor got sued by the bride. Let's call the bride Tiffany. Tiffany was one of those "my wedding is the most important day in the history of humanity" types. Her parents were wealthy, but she wanted billionaire energy. Think fireworks, designer dresses, imported swans, and a horse-drawn carriage at a beach wedding. The works. The maid of honor, who we'll call Jess, was her childhood best friend. Jess did everything Tiffany asked. Helped plan the wedding, hosted a $10K bachelorette party in Mexico, all on her own dime, and even paid for emergency dress alterations when Tiffany decided her $12,000 gown wasn't white enough. But then the big day comes, and it all implodes. Turns out Tiffany's fiancé found out 2 days before the wedding that she had cheated on him with his brother. He calls the whole thing off. Vendors get canceled. Family flies home early. Everyone's devastated. Tiffany doesn't take accountability. Nope. She decides it's Jess's fault. Claims Jess distracted her with maid of honor duties, so she couldn't process her emotions, and that's why she cheated. She sues Jess for emotional damages, lost deposits, and public humiliation. The lawsuit was full of wild accusations, including one where Tiffany said Jess sabotaged her mental health by choosing a dull champagne color for the bridesmaid dresses. We represented Jess pro bono because honestly, it was so ridiculous it felt like sport. Tiffany showed up to mediation in a white pantsuit, crying on cue, trying to make it into a Netflix moment. The mediator flat out told her she had no case. When she wouldn't back down, we took it to court. The judge laughed, like literally laughed out loud reading the claim. Case dismissed. Jess countersued for legal fees and defamation, and won. Oh, and the best part? While this was all going on, the ex-fiancé sued Tiffany for fraud and misappropriation of funds. She'd used his money for most of the wedding stuff, including an engagement ring upgrade without telling him. He won too. Last I heard, Tiffany moved to Florida to rebrand as a spiritual wellness coach and was trying to sell a course on manifesting your dream wedding. Story 3. Not a lawyer, but I work in a law office handling mostly civil cases. This one stuck with me because it was like watching a live-action soap opera. The bride, Madeline, was the client from hell. She came to us after getting sued by nearly everyone involved in her wedding. Why? Because she tried to fake her way into the luxury wedding of her dreams by scamming every vendor. She signed contracts with the venue, photographer, caterer, florist, a string quartet, even a luxury car rental service. She had no intention of paying any of them. Her plan was to use fake wire transfer confirmations and claim bank errors until the wedding was over and they couldn't undo the services. It almost worked until the day before the wedding, when the venue manager got suspicious and started making calls. Turned out the bank Madeline claimed to be using didn't even exist. He canceled the venue and warned the other vendors. Cue absolute chaos. Madeline shows up to the now canceled wedding site in a designer knockoff dress, furious that nothing Sep's ready. She screams at the venue staff, throws a bouquet at the caterer who showed up to demand payment, and tells everyone she sells sue them for breach of contract. Well, several vendors decided to sue her instead for fraud, breach of contract, emotional distress. Seriously, the florist said she had a panic attack after Madeline threatened to ruin her business online. We represented the photographer who had done an engagement shoot and pre-wedding prep work and got ghosted when he asked for payment. Madeline showed up to court in a white dress. She tried to argue that they had all ruined the most important day of her life and that she suffered enough by not getting her wedding. The judge, not amused. She lost every case, was ordered to pay over $70,000 in damages and legal fees. Turns out she also committed wire fraud and got investigated by the DA. Oh, and her fiancé dumped her after learning she had opened credit cards in his name to fund parts of the scam. He later testified against her. Last we heard, Madeline was trying to become a wedding influencer. The internet remembers, though, every post she made got flooded with screenshots from the court cases. Story 4. So, my cousin got married to a true Bridezilla. I'm talking full-on trying to ruin his life level, and it was honestly like watching a slow-motion car crash. Grab your popcorn for this one. So, my cousin comes from a very modest small-town background, and he's worked his butt off to make a decent life for himself. He ended up moving out of his hometown, found success, and made a comfortable living. Enter his wife, Laura. She came from a family with more money than they knew what to do with. You know the type, excessively wealthy, totally out of touch with reality, and completely used to getting everything they wanted without consequence. They'd known each other for about a year when they got married, which seemed pretty fast, but hey, people do weird things for love. The wedding was a disaster from the start, but nothing quite like the wedding plans. They dropped over $250,000 on the event, and I'm not talking about some small, tasteful affair. No. They had 7 different restaurants catering, each offering different types of cuisine, with chefs literally cooking the food in front of guests like a hibachi buffet. As if that wasn't extravagant enough, they had servers in full tuxedos with white gloves, and to top it all off, they served Taco Bell once everyone was trashed at midnight. I mean, who does that? But once the wedding was over and the honeymoon phase wore off, it became clear just how entitled she was. Laura wasn't working, and she wasn't planning to, but she also wasn't shy about spending money, lots of money. She'd buy ridiculously expensive things on a whim, even though my cousin was struggling to keep up with her lifestyle. She got frustrated that he wasn't making enough to fund her shopping sprees while she was at home doing absolutely nothing but spending. Meanwhile, they hadn't even started a family yet. Their relationship went downhill fast. After less than a year of marriage, she served him with divorce papers, giving him a very special ultimatum. Either he'd give her back the wedding ring, or she'd take the dog. No joke, the dog. He actually chose the dog. I mean, that's a pretty big red flag, right? Here's where it gets even more bizarre. Her sister, a lawyer, helped her file a restraining order on him, and just like that, they were done. They didn't even speak after that. The cherry on top? They finalized the divorce papers exactly 1 year and 1 day after their wedding. I can't make this stuff up. Now my cousin's doing just fine, and honestly, it looks like he dodged a huge bullet. But I just think about how bad it could have gotten if he hadn't stuck to his guns and kept the dog. TLDR. My cousin married a classic Bridezilla, spent hundreds of thousands on the wedding, and got an ultimatum about a dog and a ring during the divorce. His wife, with the help of her lawyer's sister, slapped him with a restraining order, and they haven't spoken since. He dodged a bullet. Story 5. So, I'm here to share the chaos that was my sister's wedding. Let's just say, if the staff at the venue were allowed to make Yelp reviews about bridezillas, my sister would have been their top-rated nightmare. I overheard the staff at the venue calling her a Bridezilla, and honestly, it was hard to blame them. Let me explain why. First, the basics of her dream wedding were supposed to be perfect. She had everything planned down to the last detail, but then of course reality kicked in. The chair coverings were supposed to be brown, simple enough, right? But no, they were bright red, like fire engine red. That was just the start. The bridal suite where she was supposed to get ready had no mirror. She needed it for her makeup and hair, and it wasn't just a little inconvenience. She was getting stressed, and then the makeup artist was late, like really late. So now she had no mirror, and a stressed out makeup artist rushing in. That was strike two. Then, when the guests started arriving, we realized the buffet was an absolute disaster. Not a single dish that my sister had chosen was there. Instead, they served a bunch of random, mediocre food that nobody recognized. That's when the wedding planner told us the chef was out sick. A total lie. No one was sure how that happened, but the food was bad enough that some guests just left to grab fast food. But wait, it gets worse. So the chocolate fountain was supposed to be this huge centerpiece. 4 tiers, rich chocolate flowing like a river. We were all expecting a real chocolate fountain. Instead, what we got was this sad little plastic contraption that looked like it came from Walgreens. Yes, Walgreens, the convenience store. We saw them unbox it the day of the wedding. They charged $25 per person for that joke of a fountain, and my sister almost lost her mind. And then there was the wait staff. The contract clearly stated 20 servers. Guess how many showed up? Half 10 servers. This meant guests were waiting forever for drinks, food, anything. It was like being at a high school prom where the servers were just nowhere to be found. The DJ? Oh, that guy. He refused to play a single song from the hand-picked playlist my sister had spent hours choosing. He just said, "I'm not vibing with it," and played his own music all night. That's when my sister completely lost it. She screamed at him in front of the guests, accused the staff of ruining her day, and threw her bouquet at the venue coordinator like a literal grenade. Story 6. All right, here's a wild one that'll make you rethink your next wedding invite list. So, according to my mother-in-law, I'm the Bridezilla. Yep, me. I'm the Bridezilla. But you'll soon understand why I think she is the real villain in this story. Here's the deal. My husband and I decided on a small, intimate wedding with a strict limit of 36 people. This includes us, our son, and my husband's immediate family. I thought it was going to be simple. But of course, things got complicated when my mother-in-law decided she would take control of the guest list. Out of nowhere, she handed me a guest list, 36 names. Every single one was a must-invite from her side. And she assured me in the most patronizing tone that not everyone would come, but they'd be so grateful for the invite. I mean, what? Am I supposed to feel honored that she was giving out my invites for me? I felt gross just thinking about it. So, I did what any good partner would do. I handed it over to my husband and told him to figure it out since it was his family. Big mistake. Spoiler, all of them got invites. All 36. By this point, my side of the guest list had been shrunk to only 4 people, because guess what? My mother-in-law's side had taken up the entire guest list. The worst part was that I had specifically asked for RSVPs to be returned months before the wedding so I could finalize everything. But guess what? Crickets. Nothing. So, 2 weeks before the wedding, I finally lost it. I called her out, and she promised me she'd work on it and get back to me. A week before the wedding, she tells me one of her relatives has to bring 9 extra people because they were going to be in town anyway, on some family trip. At that point, I snapped. I told her no, absolutely not. I'm done with the games. I called out all her BS and said, enough. I took control and cut off the guest list. No more changes. I told her anyone who didn't RSVP by the deadline would not be getting a seat at the table or a plate of food. And you know what happened? Right up until the day of the wedding, they were still trying to change things, still trying to add extra guests. Now here's where the Bridezilla part kicks in. We had our wedding at a Chinese buffet. Simple, easy, and everyone would find something they liked. My dress, a $40 Amazon special. My flowers, a $20 Costco bouquet. The wedding cake, a Dairy Queen ice cream cake. That's how simple I wanted it to be. But after all that, guess who still made me the villain? My mother-in-law. She tells everyone I was a Bridezilla, even though all I wanted was a simple wedding. She still plays the victim to anyone who'll listen. To this day, I'm the Bridezilla because I didn't let her take over my special day. Story 7. This one takes the cake. Literally, I was involved in a case where a bridezilla's tantrums ruined not only her own wedding, but also destroyed several people's livelihoods. Let me tell you about Chloe, the woman who made everyone around her wish they had never met her. Chloe was the kind of bride who believed her wedding should be the event of the century. If it wasn't, she'd make you pay. Literally. From day one, she insisted on booking the most expensive venue, hiring the most exclusive vendors, and having a guest list that was just way too big for the size of the venue. She wanted a wedding that was Instagram-worthy, no matter what the cost. But Chloe's attitude? Oh, it was something else. She treated everyone, vendors, bridesmaids, and even her own parents like servants. She asked her bridal party to spend thousands of dollars on custom dresses, shoes, and accessories, and when one bridesmaid, who was struggling financially, spoke up and asked if she could get a more affordable dress, Chloe berated her in front of everyone. She even kicked her out of the bridal party and told her she wasn't welcome at the wedding. Yeah, that happened. As if that wasn't bad enough, Chloe had a meltdown when the venue's staff accidentally misinterpreted one of her last-minute changes to the reception layout. The venue had to move a few tables around to accommodate a larger guest count, but Chloe lost her mind. She yelled at the event coordinator, calling her incompetent and accusing the staff of ruining her dream day. She then demanded a full refund for the inconvenience. This was weeks before the wedding, and the venue was already fully booked and unable to refund her. But the real disaster unfolded when it came time to pay the florist. Chloe had requested custom-designed floral arrangements that included flowers flown in from 5 different countries. A $40,000 bill later, she refused to pay the florist because she didn't think the flowers were perfect and didn't match her vision exactly. She started telling everyone the florist messed up the order and made false accusations of poor quality. She even went as far as posting a scathing review online. The florist, understandably frustrated and out thousands of dollars, decided to sue Chloe for breach of contract, fraud, and defamation. But that was just the beginning of her downfall. A few days before the wedding, Chloe called off the entire event. No one knows for sure why. She refused to explain, but many of us suspect it was because she was upset that things weren't going exactly as she envisioned. After hours of trying to calm her down, her fiancé decided enough was enough and told her he wasn't going through with the wedding if she didn't get help with her behavior. He left her at the altar. And that's when the drama really hit the fan. Chloe's now ex-fiancé sued her for emotional distress after the wedding cancellation and for publicly embarrassing him by threatening to call the whole thing off the day before. He also claimed damages for his lost investment in the wedding, which was significant. The man lost time, money, and dignity all in the blink of an eye. And if you think that's all, nope. Chloe's behavior came back to bite her in the most public way possible. The vendors, florist, photographer, caterer, and even the venue staff came together to file a joint lawsuit against Chloe for unpaid services, damages, and defamation. This went to court, and it was a total disaster for her. In the end, Chloe was hit with a settlement for a 6-figure sum. It included damages for emotional distress to her ex, for the vendor's losses, and the defamation of the florist. Her name was dragged through the media, and the once-dream wedding she'd hoped for turned into a public nightmare. Story 8. Client of mine is a freelance makeup artist, great at what she does, super professional, and unfortunately hired by a total bridezilla named Tara. Tara hired her nearly a year out for her wedding, full glam for herself, 10 bridesmaids, both moms and even the flower girls, pretty big job. My client gave her a full quote, clear contract, and payment schedule, all signed, all agreed to. Tara started going off the rails about 2 months in. She changed her look multiple times, demanded extra trials, free ones by the way, and threw tantrums over things like blush tones. It all peaked on the wedding day when Tara refused to get out of bed on time, then demanded a last-minute full makeover that didn't resemble anything she'd approved. When my client reminded her there wasn't enough time for a full change, Tara lost it, threw a bottle, screamed, classic meltdown. Then she refused to pay the final balance, as outlined in the signed contract, kicked my client and her assistant out of the venue in front of half-done bridesmaids, and later posted online that my client was a scam artist who left her looking like a clown. Now here's where I come in. My client came to me with everything: signed contracts, Texts, emails, trial photos, and witness statements from bridesmaids who were horrified by the bride's behavior. We filed for breach of contract, defamation, and business losses due to false online claims. Tara tried to countersue for ruined memories and emotional distress. It didn't go well. In court, the judge reviewed everything and basically said, "Are you kidding me?" Not only did we win, but Tara was ordered to pay the original contract amount plus damages and my client's legal fees. The court even forced her to remove the false reviews. And the cherry on top? Her wedding photos ended up circulating online because no one finished her makeup. Her ego cost her the one day she was trying to perfect. Story 9. I'm not a lawyer, but my cousin is, so I had front row seats to this disaster and its legal aftermath. I was a bridesmaid for one of my closest friends, a super chill, low-maintenance bride. The problem wasn't her, it was her self-appointed maid of honor, aka her older sister, aka the tyrant of all wedding tyrants. She acted like she was running a corporate merger, not a wedding. Day of the wedding, we arrived to find color-coded diagrams waiting for each of us, showing where to set up tables, decor, flower placements, even the folding pattern for the damn napkins. Each of us had a to-do list and had to report back for approval before moving on to the next item. Mind you, we also had to do our own hair and makeup, get dressed, and be ready for pre-ceremony photos. Everyone was exhausted and pissed, but we powered through. The wedding itself was beautiful, thanks to the actual bride, and an open bar dulled the sting of what we just endured. Then came the kicker. As we were about to leave, heels in hand and hair falling down, the maid of honor cornered us with exit tasks, breakdown lists, cleanup duties, and final walkthroughs we agreed to. Spoiler, no one agreed to this. At that point, a couple of bridesmaids walked out, literally just left their stuff and bounced. But one bridesmaid, let's call her Jenna, wasn't having it. She'd taken time off work, spent hundreds on travel, dress, and accommodations, and was now being bossed around like unpaid staff. Turns out Jenna's fiancé is a labor attorney, and after hearing the full story, including emails where the maid of honor listed assigned duties and schedules, he helped Jenna and another bridesmaid file a small claim suit for unpaid labor and expenses beyond what was expected of a typical bridal party. It didn't go to trial, but after some aggressive letters from the attorney, the maid of honor, under pressure from the actual bride, ended up settling out of court. She reimbursed everyone for extra expenses and backed way off. Story 10. We are no longer friends after she cost me over $5,000 and morphed into an absolute monster of a human being. I was the maid of honor for my then best friend, and from the moment she got engaged, it was like her personality was replaced by a reality show villain. Demanded destination bachelorette party which I paid for up front, couture fittings across town with zero notice, and made me order 3 different dresses because she kept changing her color scheme. She promised to reimburse me for all the bookings. Spoiler alert, she didn't. When I confronted her kindly, might I add, she called me selfish for bringing up money during her special season and told the bridal party I was emotionally unstable. Last straw, she uninvited me 2 days before the wedding, but still expected me to show up and help with setup. I sued her in small claims for the unreimbursed expenses, with emails and receipts to back it up. Judge ruled in my favor. Story 11. I'm a lawyer, and one of my most unforgettable cases involved a bride who managed to nuke her own life in spectacular fashion, all before the wedding. So picture this, a bride who had been in full Bridezilla mode since the engagement ring hit her finger. We're talking screaming at florists over emotionally dead arrangements, firing 3 makeup artists for not making her look expensive enough, and demanding all bridesmaids submit full-body measurements and professional headshots, not for dresses but for seating chart aesthetics. Yes, really? She also made her maid of honor sign a written agreement that she wouldn't get pregnant, engaged, or drastically change her appearance before the wedding. She even tried to fine a bridesmaid $200 for cutting her hair without approval. By the week of the wedding, she had alienated most of her bridal party. But things really blew up when she began to suspect her fiancé was cheating on her, with none other than Lexi, one of the bridesmaids who had managed to survive her madness. Now, instead of handling this like a sane person, she secretly installed a hidden camera in the guest bedroom where Lexi was staying during the wedding week. It wasn't just audio, it was full-blown night vision video surveillance hidden in a decorative lamp. Turns out, her suspicion was right. The fiancé and Lexi hooked up in that room. The bride didn't just confront them. She uploaded the video to a burner account, posted it in a private guest group chat, and even made a watch party joke about it in the caption. She claimed she blurred the faces, but anyone who knew them could tell exactly who it was. Lexi was devastated. Within 24 hours, she lawyered up and I took the case. We sued the bride for invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, emotional distress, and defamation. She tried to argue she had a right to know and warned everyone she was unhinged, but none of that held up. The judge shut her down hard, especially when we pointed out she'd used the footage to publicly humiliate, not privately confront. Lexi won a massive settlement, the wedding was called off, and the bride's family basically disowned her after it hit local news. Bonus, the venue revoked the rental due to moral clause violations, and she lost thousands in non-refundable deposits. Story 12. I'm a media and IP attorney, and a few years ago I got pulled into one of the most surreal wedding gone wrong lawsuits I've ever seen. It involved a couple from San Francisco and a wedding videographer who had no idea what kind of legal storm was about to hit. The bride, let's call her Courtney, was very much your classic Bridezilla from day one. She sent 5-page contracts to her bridesmaids with wardrobe clauses, demanded the caterers only serve food that photographs well, and at one point went crazy at the maid of honor not liking her wedding posts on Instagram. She was intense, to say the least. Now to the main event, the wedding itself. The groom, after way too many champagne toasts and an open whiskey bar, ended up absolutely hammered during the reception. The videographer was still recording when the guy decided to bust out some wildly sexual dance moves during their private moment on the dance floor. Think Magic Mike meets 2 a.m. karaoke. He then tripped, fell into a floral arch, knocked over a speaker, and the bride burst into tears. The footage also showed her storming off while her family consoled her. Originally, they laughed it off during the video review. But things changed when the videographer posted a 20-second highlight clip to his YouTube channel with their names blurred, just as he did for all his clients with a release form they had signed months earlier. Well, it went viral, 2 million plus views in a few days. It made the rounds from TikTok to late-night comedy Twitter. The groom-sip's old friend in Ireland even sent him the link. The bride was furious. She said the clip made her look weak, overly emotional, and married to a frat clown. So she sued the videographer for invasion of privacy, defamation, and emotional distress, claimed she was shocked, mortified, anguished, humiliated, and shamed, and that the comments, which were admittedly brutal, gave her panic attacks. She wanted damages and full removal of the video. Here's the twist. The videographer countersued and won. Why? Because Courtney and her groom had signed a detailed release form granting permission to use edited clips for promotional purposes. Not only that, but emails showed Courtney herself had initially requested that their video be fun, light, and memorable, and told him, "Don't make us look boring." And the biggest kicker, during discovery, the court found Courtney had emailed the clip to a lifestyle influencer friend, trying to get it featured on a wedding blooper Instagram page before the backlash started. She just didn't expect the internet to turn on her. The judge dismissed her case entirely and ordered her to pay a portion of the videographer's legal fees for filing in bad faith. Story 13. Not exactly a bridezilla in this case, but her maid of honor, her sister, was absolutely next-level psycho. And karma didn't just RSVP to this wedding, it brought a receipt. My wife and I were invited to the wedding of one of her former co-workers, not super close, but close enough to get an invite. The wedding was at a castle about 200 miles away, and all the communication was being done through the bride's sister, who also happened to be the maid of honor and self-appointed wedding logistics coordinator. Here, Stets, where things got shady. First email. Accommodation and food for 2 nights, £200, please send to my account. Okay, fair. Castle wedding, fancy setup, happy to contribute. Next email. 10-night dinner and drinks kitty, £150, please send to my account. Bit steep, but we assume something extravagant was planned. Third email. Canoe trip the day before the wedding, £100. Everyone in the bridal party expected to join. Hard pass. I had a shoulder injury at the time. No way I was paddling anywhere. Then came salsa class before the hen night, 50 pounds. Please send to my account. Now it was just ridiculous. I looked up the local studio, same class for that group size, should have cost half that. Funny how the exact overage added up to a free ride for 2 people. Care to guess who? Yep, the bride and her sister. I did the math. Before even packing a bag, we were being asked for over 500 pounds for a wedding where we barely knew anyone. I wrote back, we still pay for our accommodation and my wife Sep's meal at the hen party. Not interested in funding your personal vacation. Radio silence. The bride and her sister showed up to the hen dinner in a private stretch limo while the rest of the guests carpooled in taxis. Guess who paid for the limo? Yep, the drinks kitty. The final straw? My wife called me an hour into the dinner, asking to be picked up. The whole evening had been an exclusive clique of the bride's family and BFFs, and my wife, who helped pay for all this, was treated like a background extra. Now here's where karma rolls in. Turns out the maid of honor had been running similar side gigs for 2 other weddings, pocketing the difference between inflated activity costs and actual expenses. One of the guests at this wedding, a solicitor, she started digging after getting similar inflated charges. Long story short, enough complaints came through that the maid of honor was investigated for fraudulent misrepresentation and unlicensed event coordination with financial gain. I don't know all the court details, but I do know this. She had to pay restitution to over a dozen guests and was barred from organizing events for money again. Bride didn't speak to her for almost a year afterward. Story 14. Not a lawyer myself, but this one almost turned into a courtroom episode, and honestly, I wouldn't have blamed anyone who sued. My cousin is, how do I put this lightly, a textbook bridezilla with a superiority complex and control issues so bad, I'm surprised her wedding dress didn't file a restraining order. She's one of those people who has to be the center of attention at all times. Case in point, after she had twins, she made people book appointments to visit them, not even joking. So 3 years ago, she's planning this grand wedding and wants it to be flawless. But it starts unraveling immediately. First, her dad's girlfriend's daughter has to move up her own wedding by a full year because her grandfather is dying and wanted to see her get married before passing. Totally understandable, right? Not to cousin Bridezilla. She threw a fit for weeks because someone stole her thunder by getting married a few weeks before her. She literally sulked during her bridal shower about someone else's dying grandfather. Real empathy there. Next disaster, she insists on having her ceremony outside in New Jersey in November during a cold snap. We tried reasoning with her. The venue, which had done 2 other family weddings indoors, gorgeous both times, told her they'd set up outdoor heaters only if it wasn't raining. Well, guess what? Forecast said rain and near freezing. Still, she was dead set on Grandma, our 84-year-old grandmother who could barely handle air conditioning, sitting outside to watch her frostbitten vows. I'd had enough. At our annual Halloween party, just days before the wedding, I pulled her aside after everyone else had given up trying to talk sense into her and said, my 84-year-old grandmother is not sitting outside in November. If you insist, she'll be inside with me, and we'll stream the ceremony through my phone. That's when she finally begrudgingly moved it inside. But oh, she was fuming. And not just about that. Her brother had the audacity to show up with his very pregnant girlfriend, which somehow was seen as stealing attention too. I'm convinced that if anyone had slipped, gotten hypothermia, or needed medical care from her stubbornness, we'd be talking about this in a deposition. The only thing that saved her from a lawsuit was sheer luck and other people stepping in to stop her from making dangerous, irrational choices. Story 15. Defense attorney here. A few years back, I had a case where a bridezilla took main character energy to a dangerous level and ended up slapped with a defamation lawsuit that we won handily. Here's sets how it went down. The bride, let's call her Alyssa, was one of those people who treated her wedding like a Hollywood premiere. She hired this sweet, newer wedding planner who had glowing references and charged fairly. Things seemed smooth until the bride didn't get her exact brand of roses during a rehearsal centerpiece demo. Not even the color, the brand. From there, she spiraled. I'm not exaggerating. She went full scorched earth. She started publicly trashing the planner on Instagram, TikTok, and even Yelp. She called her a scammer, emotionally unstable, and said she nearly ruined the biggest day of her life. She even accused her of stealing a family heirloom, something that had never even existed until the accusation. The planner, devastated, lost nearly all her clients within 2 weeks. She couldn't book anyone. One venue told her they don't work with unstable vendors, which she found out was directly due to Alyssa's public smear campaign. She came to me crushed, but luckily, Alyssa was too self-absorbed to cover her tracks. She left a trail of exaggerated lies, deleted comments, and even admitted in text to a friend that she was just trying to teach the planner a lesson for disappointing her. That's defamation with real damages, so we sued. Alyssa tried to play the victim, showing up in court like it was a red carpet event. She sobbed on the stand, claiming she had PTSD from wilted flowers and a bad aura energy on her wedding day. But the jury saw through it, especially when we pulled up receipts, chat logs, and the planner's spotless record before the incident. The verdict? 6 figures in damages. Alyssa's family ended up selling her designer wedding dress online to help pay the judgment. Story 16. This one's a personal favorite. A few years ago, I defended a wedding photographer named Rachel against a bridezilla named Sophia. Rachel, a new photographer, booked a wedding with Sophia, who had very high expectations, custom favors, perfect lighting, and every moment captured in photos. The wedding day was chaotic, but Rachel did her best despite being a bit late due to traffic and some technical issues with her camera. Afterwards, Sophia trashed Rachel on social media, accusing her of missing key moments, being unprofessional, and even defaming her business online. She left scathing reviews everywhere, claiming Rachel was incompetent. Sophia demanded a full refund, but Rachel refused, and instead, she came to me. We filed a defamation suit, proving that Sophia's claims were false and damaging. In court, Sophia couldn't back up her dramatic accusations, and we showed that Rachel had done her job despite a few hiccups. The jury sided with us, awarding Rachel damages for defamation and emotional distress. Sophia had to pay up, including court fees, and Rachel's reputation was restored. The takeaway: be careful who you try to defame, and never underestimate the power of a lawyer. Story 17. I defended a photographer, Anna, against a bridezilla named Chloe. Chloe had ridiculously high expectations for her wedding, and when things didn't go perfectly, like the groom being late and flowers being the wrong shade, she flipped out. But the real issue was Chloe using her young child as a pawn. During the ceremony, she yelled at her daughter for not being quiet enough for pictures, making the child cry. Anna captured the moment, and Chloe didn't like how the photo turned out. Chloe later accused Anna of emotional neglect and posted false claims online, saying Anna ruined the wedding photos and caused her child harm. Anna came to me, and we filed a defamation lawsuit. We proved that Anna had done her job professionally, and the photos showed the child being comforted, not harmed. The jury sided with Anna, and Chloe had to pay damages for defamation. The lesson: don't mess with a professional when you're the one causing the drama. Story 18. This case still blows my mind. I defended a wedding planner, Grace, against a bridezilla named Tina. Tina hired Grace for her high-end dream wedding and was extremely controlling from the start. Everything had to be perfect, and if one thing went wrong, Grace would be blamed. The wedding day arrived, and despite all the meticulous planning, there were a few hiccups. Nothing major, but a couple of late deliveries and some confusion with the timing. Tina flipped out. She yelled at Grace for not fixing things, and even blamed her for the groom's family arriving late, which wasn't even Grace's fault. After the wedding, Tina went online and accused Grace of ruining the event, claiming she was incompetent, disorganized, and ruined the best day of my life. She posted scathing reviews everywhere and shared her frustrations with anyone who would listen. Grace came to me for help. We filed a defamation lawsuit. We showed that Tina's claims were exaggerated and that Grace had gone above and beyond, working tirelessly to fix any issues on the fly. In court, Tina couldn't provide any solid evidence, and we demonstrated how her emotional outbursts and unrealistic expectations were to blame. The jury ruled in Grace's favor, awarding her damages for the reputational harm and emotional distress Tina caused. Tina ended up paying for her actions and learned the hard way that no one can defame a professional without consequences. Story 19. This one's a wild ride. I had the pleasure of defending a lighting technician, Jake, against a bridezilla and her overbearing mother-in-law, Linda. Jake had been hired to set up the lighting for a wedding at an outdoor venue, and everything was going smoothly until the wedding day. Linda, the mother-in-law, had been micromanaging everything, from the flowers to the seating arrangements. She wasn't happy with anything and made a point of loudly criticizing every detail. The bride, Emily, was already at her breaking point, and things went from bad to worse when Linda's dog, yes, her dog, started running loose around the venue, causing chaos during the ceremony. To make matters worse, Linda blamed Jake, saying the flash from the lights startled the dog. When Jake adjusted the lights, she said the lighting was too dim and claimed that Jake hadn't done his job. During the reception, when things started to spiral, Linda demanded that Jake rework the entire setup, even though he had already followed the agreed-upon plan. She started screaming at him in front of guests. Later, Emily joined in, accusing Jake of ruining the wedding atmosphere, and told him that her mother was going to have him blacklisted in the industry. The worst part, they spread lies online, claiming Jake was unprofessional and incompetent. Jake, understandably frustrated, came to me for help. We filed a defamation suit, showing that Jake had followed the contract to the letter and that the issues were due to Linda's unreasonable demands and the chaos caused by her dog. We also gathered evidence that there were no lighting issues, just Linda's incessant criticism. The jury sided with Jake, awarding him damages for emotional distress and reputational harm. Linda and Emily ended up paying for their false accusations, and Jake's business recovered better than ever. Story 20. This case was truly something else. My client, Megan, was an experienced event coordinator hired by a bride, Sophia, to plan a boho chic wedding in the desert. Everything was going smoothly leading up to the big day until the bride started micromanaging, of course, not the decor or the food, but the weather. On the morning of the wedding, Sophia kept texting Megan, demanding she do something about the wind. When Megan told her that controlling the weather was beyond her control, Sophia absolutely lost it. She screamed at Megan, demanding a backup plan for the wind, but not tents because tents were too traditional. She then blamed Megan when a bit of dust blew into the appetizers, an inevitability in a desert setting. After the wedding, Sophia refused to pay the final invoice, accusing Megan of negligent spiritual alignment because the wind was clearly a sign of bad energy. That's when Megan contacted me. We filed a lawsuit for breach of contract and non-payment. In court, Sophia tried to argue that the wind was a spiritual omen and that Megan, as the planner, was responsible for managing the energy of the event. The judge, without missing a beat, looked at her and asked, "So you want to sue because of wind?" and slammed the case closed. The judge ruled in Megan's favor, awarding her the full payment plus late fees. To top it off, Sophia's ridiculous behavior was shared in a wedding coordinator forum, and she was unofficially blacklisted by several vendors in the industry. Karma really does move with the breeze. Story 21. I represented a bridesmaid who ended up suing the bride after the wedding food poisoned half the bridal party, and yes, we won. My client Jess was part of a destination wedding where the bride insisted on doing everything authentic and locally sourced, which sounds nice until you realize that meant unrefrigerated shrimp, ceviche served at an outdoor welcome dinner in the middle of July. Multiple people, groomsmen, bridesmaids, even the groom's mom ended up violently ill the night before the ceremony. Jess was hit the worst. She ended up in the hospital with dehydration and missed the entire wedding day. When she informed the bride after being discharged, the bride responded, and I quote, "Ugh, you could Sev at least made it for photos." Then she had the nerve to ask Jess to still pay for her share of the bridal villa and send back her custom dress so someone else could wear it for the photo shoot redo. That's SIPS. When Jess contacted me, we sued for medical expenses, travel reimbursement, and damages for negligence. The kicker? A health inspector's report from the resort kitchen cited improper food storage for the seafood used at the dinner, and we got our hands on it. Bride tried to argue that Jess should have known raw fish was risky and that it was her fault for not being able to handle it. The judge disagreed. Jess was awarded full damages, and the bride was left with a nasty mark on her event insurance record. Story 22. His was a fun one to handle. My client was a talented choreographer, Lily, who was hired to help a couple with a surprise first dance. They planned a full-on ballroom routine and rehearsed for 6 weeks. The groom was a natural, nailing every move. The bride, however, struggled to keep up, but Lily worked patiently with her. Still, on the night of the wedding, the bride froze, forgot the steps, and walked off mid-performance. It was a disaster. Instead of taking responsibility, the bride accused Lily of sabotaging her with confusing choreography. She demanded a full refund and even went as far as posting online, calling Lily a fraud who humiliates brides for fun. Naturally, Lily came to me for help. We filed a defamation suit. In court, the groom awkwardly testified that the choreography was actually great, but the bride never practiced. On top of that, we presented rehearsal footage where the bride was joking around, saying things like, "Whatever, I'll just wing it," and refusing to focus during practice. The judge saw through her claims and ruled in favor of Lily. The bride was ordered to take down all false posts and pay for damages to protect herself going forward. Lily added a clause to her contract: "I cannot dance for karma steps got rhythm." Story 23. I recently had the pleasure of defending a talented stylist, Rachel, who had been hired to do hair for a bride and her bridal party. Everything was going smoothly until about 20 minutes before the bride was supposed to walk down the aisle. The bride, let's call her Sarah, decided she wanted an entirely different look. Not just a small tweak, but a completely new updo. Rachel explained that there simply wasn't enough time to make such a drastic change before the ceremony. That's when Sarah turned into a full-on Bridezilla, calling her a lazy technician and demanding she make it work. When Rachel refused, Sarah threw a brush, stormed off, and caused a scene. Rachel, understandably frustrated, packed up her things and left. But that's where the real drama started. Sarah went online and posted everywhere, claiming that Rachel had walked out mid-style, leaving her half-bald and crying. Of course, that wasn't the truth. There were photos of Sarah with her hair fully styled just before the meltdown. We filed a defamation suit and a claim for interference with Rachel's business reputation. In court, Sarah tried to play the victim but was caught lying under oath. She claimed she never raised her voice, even though a bridesmaid had recorded the entire meltdown on her phone. The judge ruled in our favor, and Rachel was awarded damages. Now she includes a clear clause in all her bookings: no last-minute drama, period. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.